drifting through the corner of 183rd Street and Webster Avenue, had become so ordinary that nobody noticed it anymore. Nobody except Julian. He always noticed. At 17 years old, he saw the streets of Rough burned inside his jacket pocket like it was alive, watching him, waiting. Then, at the corner of 182nd Street and Bathgate, he stopped, painted across an old wall in fresh spray paint, were words staring directly back at him. Julian sat quietly on the cracked concrete ledge outside his grandmother's laundromat, watching the movement around him the way someone might study dangerous animals in a documentary. Every passing face told a story, most of them ugly. "Yo, Jota, you planning to sit there your whole life?" The voice came from across the street. Javier, his cousin, walking fast toward him with a crooked Yankees cap tilted sideways and the faint chemical smell of synthetic weed trailing behind his jacket. Julian didn't answer. He simply shrugged. Javier dropped beside him and smirked. "What's with that philosopher face again?" He nudged Julian's shoulder. "Still thinking about what the old man said?" Julian let out a slow breath. The old man. That meant Ray Blanco, one of the men running the local Trinitarios crew, a man who looked like he had been born holding a knife and had ice running through his veins instead of blood. And last night, Ray had given Julian something that didn't feel like an offer. It felt like a verdict. "He wants me to prove loyalty," Julian said at last, his eyes still fixed on the street ahead. "Says it's time to show whether I'm real blood." Javier let out a dry laugh. Not the kind that came from amusement. The kind people used when they already knew something bad was coming. "That means he's gonna make you hurt somebody." Javier stared down the block, jaw tightening. Or worse. Julian shut his eyes. The memory from last night hit him instantly. Ray Blanco standing under the dim streetlight, saying almost nothing, just handing him a carefully folded lime green bandana. No speech, no explanation, just silence. But around here, silence always meant something. He had until Sunday. That was it. No second chances, no questions, or only one thing left to understand. This wasn't an invitation. It was an initiation. Mario had gone through the same thing 2 months earlier. Everybody remembered Mario, especially the limp, especially the jagged scar running across his chin. He had said yes, and now he walked through the neighborhood carrying the permanent reminder of what loyalty cost. Julian's heart pounded harder every time he remembered Ray's eyes. Cold, still, predatory, like a shark waiting beneath dark water, watching, patient, knowing eventually something would bleed. "You don't have to do this, Jota." Javier's voice sounded quieter now, different. For the first time that day, there was guilt in it. He turned his face away before speaking again. "I've been living this life for years." He rubbed his forehead slowly. "And trust me, once you step into it." He paused. The words felt heavy. There's no way back. Neither of them spoke after that. The city filled the silence for them. Somewhere in the distance, a police siren sliced through the afternoon air. Above the skyline, a helicopter circled slowly over Harlem. Just another Friday in New York. But for Julian, it felt like the first day of losing whatever innocence he had left that night. Julian came home earlier than usual. His grandmother's laundromat closed at 8, and normally he stayed behind, helping stack laundry baskets and sweep the sidewalk outside. But not tonight. Tonight, his chest felt tight, like something invisible had already begun moving toward him. Something bad. Something inevitable. The apartment he shared with his mother and little sister, sat on the 5th floor of a decaying building where the elevator almost never worked. The hallways smelled of mildew, burnt food, and old pipes that had probably stopped working years ago. This building had been dying slowly for decades, just like the people inside it. As Julian unlocked the front door, he heard his younger sister singing softly in Spanish from the living room. A school song. Simple, carefree. For one brief second, he smiled. A small flash of sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Then it disappeared. From the kitchen came the sound of metal scraping against a cooking pot. His mother stood there preparing dinner. Rice, beans, same meal, same struggle, same quiet sacrifice, every single night. "Hey, mijo," she said gently, not turning around. "You eat anything out there?" Julian dropped his backpack beside the couch. "No, I'm not hungry." She stopped stirring. Something shifted. Mothers notice things other people miss. Even exhausted mothers. Especially exhausted mothers. She turned slowly toward him. Did something happen? For one dangerous second, Julian almost told her everything. About the bandana, about Ray Blanco, about the fear sitting inside his stomach like poison. But he stopped himself. He couldn't do it. He didn't want to see her cry. She had already cried enough over unpaid bills, over endless shifts at work, over his father. Dead 7 years now after a robbery nobody had ever fully explained. "I'm just tired, Mom." She studied his face for another second, then quietly returned to cooking. "Don't get tired of life, Julian." Her voice came out soft, almost like she wasn't speaking to him. Maybe she was speaking to herself. Julian walked straight into his bedroom and locked the door behind him. No hesitation, no sound, just the heavy silence pressing down around him. He moved toward the old wooden dresser sitting beside his bed and slowly pulled open the top drawer. There it was, the bandana, lime green, bright, violent. It almost looked unnatural against the darkness of the room. Like a warning signal, or a countdown. He stared at it for several long seconds, before shoving it beneath a pile of socks, as if hiding it could somehow delay what was coming. But deep down, he already knew. Nothing was stopping this. The Bronx woke up angry. Grey skies, police cruisers rolling through intersections, helicopters tearing circles overhead, rumors spreading faster than traffic. The whole neighborhood felt nervous, like something had shifted during the night, and everyone could feel it, even if nobody said it out loud. Julian found Javier behind the school basketball court the next morning. The place was empty, except for 2 pigeons pecking at cracked asphalt, and a stray dog wandering near the chain-link fence. Javier wasn't smiling anymore. Not this time. Something was wrong. Mario disappeared. No greeting. No small talk. Just those 2 words. Julian felt his stomach tighten instantly. "What do you mean?" "Disappeared." Javier wiped sweat from his forehead, even though the morning air was cold. "Nobody's seen him since last night." He glanced over his shoulder before lowering his voice. "Word is, the Nietas grabbed him." Nietas. Julian felt something twist inside his chest. Mario, gone. Just like that. No warning. No goodbye. One mistake, and the streets erased you. That fast. The pressure building on his shoulders suddenly became unbearable. If he refused Ray, they would call him weak, a coward. Maybe worse, a traitor. But if he obeyed, he would become exactly what terrified him most. A man like Ray Blanco. And somehow, that possibility scared him even more. "I have until tomorrow." Julian said it almost to himself, barely audible. Javier spit onto the pavement, then shook his head slowly. That kind of decision, man. He stared toward the empty street ahead, his expression hardening. It changes everything. A gust of wind tore across the court, sending a dead leaf spinning over cracked concrete. And somehow, it felt like the neighborhood itself was whispering, "Nobody leaves here clean." That evening, Julian wandered alone through the rain-soaked streets of the Bronx. No destination, no plan, just movement. The neighborhood itself felt heavier tonight, like the entire city knew something ugly was about to happen and was waiting for it. He passed narrow alleys where kicked soda cans echoed like distant gunshots. Murals stretched across old brick walls, faces of boys who had died too young. Candles burned beneath faded photographs. Forgotten names, forgotten futures. He walked past locked churches standing silent against the darkness. Places built to save souls. In neighborhoods where souls rarely stayed untouched long enough to save. Eventually, he reached Crotona Park. Crotona Park streetlights flickered weakly. Shadows moved strangely against the wet pavement. And sitting alone on a burned concrete bench, Ray Blanco was waiting, exactly where Julian knew he would be. "Thought you weren't coming." Ray didn't raise his voice. He never needed to. Julian stopped several feet away, his heartbeat pounding so violently it felt like war drums inside his chest. "I came to listen." Ray smiled, a cold smile, the kind that never reached the eyes. "You've already listened." He slowly reached inside his coat, pulled out a sealed envelope, then extended it toward Julian. "Now it's time to choose." Julian took it with trembling hands. Inside, an old Polaroid photograph and a folded piece of paper, a name scribbled in crooked handwriting. Luis Rivera. Nickname, Chaparro. He gave information to the Nietas. Ray's voice stayed calm. Too calm. He thought he could betray the crown. He leaned forward slightly. "And keep walking." Silence. Then Julian forced himself to ask, "What do you want me to do?" Ray stared at him, unblinking. "I don't want anything." A pause. Then the words came sharper. "I'll know by Sunday whether you belong with us." Another pause. "Or with them." Julian swallowed hard. It felt like he had just touched hell itself, barehanded. "And if I don't do it?" For several seconds, Ray said nothing, then slowly stood up, his black coat moving with the wind. "Everybody belongs somewhere, Julian." A long silence. "Family." Pause. "The streets." Pause. "Fear." He stared directly into Julian's eyes, cold, absolute. "You choose." And then he disappeared into the darkness of the park, like a ghost, wearing black. Saturday bled into Sunday, and Julian never slept. He sat motionless on the edge of his bed, the lime green bandana in one hand, the envelope resting on his lap, his bedroom window fogging slowly with every heavy breath. He kept thinking about Chaparro, a kid he recognized, someone who played soccer on the same field, a guy who once lent him a bike pump after school. And now, he had become the target, the sacrifice, the prize demanded by the streets. Julian wasn't holding the weapon. He was becoming it. Sunday morning, he walked alone toward the train station, head lowered, fists clenched. The photograph burned inside his jacket pocket like it was alive, watching him, waiting. Then, at the corner of 182nd Street and Bathgate, he stopped. Painted across an old wall in fresh spray paint were words staring directly back at him. "Those who stay silent are the ones who lose themselves." Julian stared, breathing hard. Something inside him shifted, like the neighborhood itself was speaking directly to him, warning him, pushing him, testing him. Somewhere in the Bronx, Luis Rivera was still alive. For now. But Sunday had arrived, and before the day ended, Julian would decide what kind of man he was going to become.